Hey everybody, how's it going? I've got a slightly upgraded setup now, which I'm really excited about. I'd gone to the ultra wide monitor, which is perfect for this, but now I've got a way that I can look at my computer, but also um, basically have my eyes towards the camera. So like right now, I'm not looking directly at the camera. I'm looking at my monitor where I could read something, but I suspect you can't really tell. So I think that that's going to make it a little better. Um, I always hated feeling like I was looking away from the monitor. I will some because I have a very wide monitor with a lot of information on it. But anyway, in addition to that, I wanted to know about my sound. So thank you very much, Ben. I'm going to actually turn it up a little bit. Hopefully that might be even a little bit better. But now I've got this tiny little monitor. It's an 11-inch monitor that sits to the side of my large monitor that I can have my OBS software. That's what I use for streaming on. So I'm really excited about this setup. This is, I think this is the final iteration of streaming from home, and we'll be streaming from church pretty soon on Sunday morning. So our streaming ministry has come a long way from the beginning of COVID when I first kind of threw it together. And I hope that you really like the quality of it. I hope that I don't know, the lights in the background, the quality of the camera, the quality of the sound. I hope that that's all. Um, I hope it makes it for a good experience. That's really what I want. I want good content, but I'll be honest, I want it to look pretty. So, what do y'all think? Does it look pretty? Jeff and Jill, good to see you. Luana, I'm glad you are with us. Ben, good. A little volume made it better. That's good. Janice, it's good to see you. I hope you got David back there somewhere as a captive audience, forcing him to listen. I want to play with my drone a little bit more. I haven't done that very much lately, so I know we've had some inclement weather, but when David's ready to go out to church and play around a little bit, I'd like to see if I could get good at having my drone up and taking video of his airplane flights. So ask David if he'd like to meet over at the church sometime and do that. I need, man, I, I don't know what people think a pastor's life is like, but it ebbs and flows. I'll admit there are weeks where it's it's an easy job, and there are weeks when it's an impossible job. And it's been a long, hard since Lent started. It's been really rough, and I'm ready for some playtime. So I hope that David might be up to some playtime. Dorothy Collier, it's awesome to see you. Susan, thank you for the compliment. Appreciate that. I can only look so good myself. I fear that is going to be a limiting factor on how good things are going to actually look on stream. But hey, I'm working on that too. Down like 35 pounds now. My doctors are starting to notice. I'm actually having a fairly significant medical issue right now in that my blood sugar is low too often, and I think that's because I've been taking this diabetic medication, a shot, for over a year now, and it stays in your system for 2 or 3 months. And now that I weigh less and I'm exercising a touch more, my blood sugar is getting down into the 50s, which for me, for a lot of people, that would be fine. But for me, it makes me feel pretty pretty not good. But that's all. Just to let you know, last week I had to cancel because I had some tests done. I don't know an easy way to say this, so I will just tell you that I had a colonoscopy and an endoscopy. Had the endoscopy because I had gastric bypass surgery 11 years ago, and I like to check on everything every now and then. And I was also having some intense pain in one particular area. That one particular area is an ulcer. Not remotely surprised I have an ulcer. I'm a little surprised that it has nothing to do with stress or what I'm eating. So the good news is I don't have to change any of that stuff. It's from taking NSAIDs, and I knew better. Once you have gastric bypass, you're never supposed to take NSAIDs again because I really have a very small stomach pouch, and so the lining, NSAIDs can erode the lining of your stomach, and when your stomach is like this big, it makes an effect. It was what's the word I'm looking for? It was a managed risk. I can't think of the exact word that I was looking for, but my headaches have been so bad I was willing to risk it. And as it turns out, it's okay. I can never take another NSAID as long as I live, but I'm on medication possibly for the rest of my life, definitely until my next endoscopy. But they say that it should heal and not give me any more problems. The good news was the colonoscopy. This was my fifth, one, two, three, yeah, my fifth one, and I had one decent one. Uh, Two bad ones when I was young. And my last one, I had several precancerous polyps. This time I was completely clear. So I get to go 5 years instead of 3. And if that one's clear, I can wait for another one until I'm 60. So that was good. That's a celebration. Colon issues run in my biological family. I don't know a lot about them, but I finally have learned all of their medical histories. So there's some colon cancer and other things. That's why I had them a little bit younger than I was supposed to. But anyway, it's good. Jimmy is here, and she says Misty's here. That's good too. Misty's had a rough time, and I'm glad she's with us. Ben, I do have my gallbladder. I'm not supposed to. When I had my bypass surgery, they said, "Yeah, while we're in there, we'll probably just take out your gallbladder," and then they left my gallbladder, and I wish that they had not. But I'm sure at some point I'll have it taken out. So anyway, that's what's been going on with me today. If you want to get your Bibles ready or your app on your phone, or if you want to go to BibleGateway.com and look up the NRSV version or whatever version that you like, we're going to start with Genesis 42, verse 1. Interesting. Gallbladder regulates your spicy foods. Well, I'm going to be honest with you and tell you that I don't like spicy foods. That's not true. I love spicy foods, but like tiny bits of spices, especially if it's a pepper spice. If it's like curry or something like that, or I guess garlic's not a spice, but there are some spices I love the taste of. But peppers, I just don't have the tolerance at all. It just hurts. And that's no good. All right, let me take a look over on YouTube and let's see what's going on here. Boy, we have a low count on Facebook. Seems like every time I miss a Sunday that happens. But we do have a couple of people over here. Looks like my buddy Curtis is on here, and appreciate you being with us. Jeff Arnold also is with us on YouTube. Glad you guys are here. Yeah, every time I miss a Tuesday, we we suffer the next week. That's one reason I really try to just keep going. But last week, just couldn't do it. So we're going to get started. It is 7:12, and I want to get through at least 2 chapters. Probably am not going to go quite as deep. Having good conversations with a really good friend of mine, a colleague, Jonathan Spiegel, who I'll be honest with you, it is a very, wonder if I can explain why without sounding like a jerk. It is often difficult as a pastor to listen to other people's Bible studies and sermons and that sort of thing. There definitely are some people that I listen to all the time. I'm not somebody that I would think that a pastor would want to spend time listening to, but my buddy Jonathan, he listens every week, and he calls me most weeks, and we have a really good conversation, and he tells me some things that I didn't know, a lot of things that I think are brilliant, a couple things that I think are stupid. No, I'm just kidding. But a couple things I might not agree with. But generally speaking, he has he really knows more than I do, and brings a lot of really interesting aspects to things that I haven't thought about. So I'm looking forward to his call this week, but I'm not going to go super deep into this story. It is an interesting story, but we're getting towards the end of Genesis, and I just kind of want to keep going. So Genesis 42, verse 1. So as you will remember, there is a famine in Egypt. Joseph interpreted a dream that the Pharaoh had, knew the famine was coming, told Pharaoh, hey, we're going to have 7 really good years followed by 7 really bad years. So in those good years, let's do a good job of storing up a lot of grain, because what's going to happen is during those bad years, everybody's going to come to you and they're going to want to buy your grain, and it'll be a way for you to acquire wealth. And also, although Joseph doesn't really say this, I have to believe it's part of his character. Also, you're going to be able to save lives. You're going to be able to help people, and you'll grow in stature and power and in name if you do this. So that's what's happened. So Jacob, and it's interesting that it says Jacob, because in my primary commentary that I use, they specifically mention that Jacob is never called Jacob again. He's always called Israel, but that's not true. My scripture, my interpretation says Jacob. Anyway, doesn't matter. When Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, why do you keep looking at one another? I love this. This is such good writing for something that happened thousands of years ago. There's this whole idea in modern literature of show, don't tell. And yeah, granted, there's a little bit of telling here, but he's not saying Jacob's sons were all standing around staring because they were starving and they didn't know what to do. Instead, we just kind of get this kind of slick. I just think it's really nicely done. Why do you keep looking at one another? I've heard, he said, that there's grain in Egypt, so go down and buy grain for us there that we may live and not die. So they're just all looking around, basically saying, well, I guess we're going to die. There's nothing to be done. But somehow Jacob knows that there's grain in Israel, and I guess they don't. But anyway, we read that 10 of Joseph's brothers. How many brothers does Joseph have? Joseph has 11 brothers, because that makes 12, and we have 12 tribes of Israel. But only 10 went, because Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers, for he feared that harm might come to him. Jacob has still not learned the lesson that it's not okay to have favorites. Does anybody know why Benjamin would be Jacob's favorite son now that Joseph is presumed dead? And I am going to wait 20 seconds or however far behind we are so that someone might be able to answer this question. Why does Jacob, I don't want to say prefer, but give preferential treatment to Benjamin of all of his sons? Why does he care more about Benjamin than anybody else? Who knows? That's right, Ben. That is exactly right. Rachel had 2 sons, and her 2 sons were Joseph and Benjamin. And I thought at first as well, Susan, so don't feel badly here. I thought he was the baby, and he might know. And I'm really, I hope this doesn't sound condescending, I'm proud that you recognize that he's the youngest. But Ben's got this one. It's because he's Rachel's son. Jacob just is madly in love with Rachel, and the children that he gives to him are special to him. That's why Joseph was the eldest son from the wife he loved the most, and that's why Joseph was so special to him. And so now he's got Benjamin. Ben might know this because maybe he's named after Benjamin. I don't know. Ben, are you named after Benjamin from the story of Jacob and his brothers? Inquiring minds want to know. You were? Good deal. See, so you probably know a lot about it. I was named after my father. Oddly enough, I was named after my uncle, who ended up becoming my father after I was adopted much later. So maybe there was a little predestination going on there, but that's a Calvinistic Presbyterian kind of thing. So we'll skip that. So yeah, that's why he doesn't send Benjamin. He just can't stand the thought of losing another one of Rachel's children. Thus, the sons of Israel were among the other people who came to buy grain, for the famine had reached the land of Canaan. Now, Joseph was governor over the land. Keep in mind, I love this idea, and I don't think this is going to come up again. I don't think that what we think of when we think of slaves is quite the same relationship that slaves had back then. I don't think slaves of the ancient Egyptian empire are the same as the slaves of the southern plantations in the mid 1800s, is what I'm kind of trying to say. So I don't want to water the word down by calling it servant, as I will admit that I do sometimes, but I do think it's a slightly different relationship. Sue Goff from Sue from St. Jomo, it is good to see you. I hope that you are doing well. Curtis says, my son heard me answer it. You were on top of the whole Rachel situation, huh? That's good. Good for you. All right, so continuing on. Joseph, who is technically a slave, sold into slavery, correct? But he is now governor over the land. It was he who sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed themselves before him with their faces to the ground. And we will learn later, although it takes him 8 chapters to do it, at some point, Joseph is going to tell his brothers that only God deserves that kind of There's a special word for it that we'll get in just a minute, but that kind of treatment belongs to God and God alone. But Jacob allows them to do it in this case. And why would, not Jacob, Joseph, why would Joseph allow this? I would say partly pride, right? I mean, these are the people who sold him into slavery. And do y'all remember a dream that he had? He dreamed. He dreamt? He had a dream where his brothers bowed down before him. So maybe it's not a pride thing, and maybe it's something that had to happen to fulfill that particular prophecy. Kim says she is home from work and missed us last week. Yes, Kim, I am sorry. I was not available last week. By the way, Kim, Sue, Curtis, if any of you want to be added to our list, we've got some room to put on our Call 'em All list so that you will get notifications. If you're not already on it, you'll get notifications reminding you that we're starting the stream, or last week, for instance, mentioning that we were not going to have the stream. So if you're not already on there, shoot me a private message. Curtis, you know how to get a hold of me. You can send me a message on chess.com. If you give me your phone number and your email, I'll make sure. Okay, Sue and Kim are both on it. So Curtis, just up to you if you want to be on that list. Okay. I think this is interesting coming from the post-Easter stories, Jesus in the upper room showing up behind locked doors and nobody recognizes him until he says something that makes them recognize him. The men don't recognize him as they walk on the road to Emmaus until he says something. When he shows up in the book of John and tells the fishermen to cast their nets on the other side of the boat, they don't recognize who he is at first. They hardly ever recognize Jesus. And in this particular case, Joseph, who stands in as sort of a pre-messianic figure, I think, also goes unrecognized. So they don't know who Joseph is. But of course, he knows who his brothers are. So Joseph treated them like strangers, and he spoke harshly to them. "Where do you come from?" he said. They said, "From the land of Canaan to buy food." And although Joseph had recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Joseph also remembered the dreams he had dreamt about them. He said to them, "You are spies. You've come to see the nakedness of the land." And by nakedness of the land, he's referring to the borders. He's accusing them of coming as spies to kind of see where it would be easy to sneak into the land and try to overthrow the Pharaoh. He doesn't believe this, obviously. So the first time I read it, I thought he was lying. And I guess ultimately he is. But I thought it was malicious. And as I read it and read it and read it, I came to the conclusion that that's not the case. He's not being mean to them. He's doing this for a very particular purpose, which we'll talk about in just a minute. "You're spies. You've come to see the nakedness of the land." They said to him, "No, my lord, your servants have come to buy food. We're all sons of one man." So what they're saying is they're all brothers. And why would they say that? Well, assuming it's the truth, and of course Joseph knows it's the truth, but they're offering this information because you would never send a group of brothers as spies into a land, because if they got caught, they'd all be put to death and you would lose your entire future. So by letting him know that they're all sons of the same man, that they're all brothers, that should let Joseph know that indeed there's nothing to worry about. Sorry, give me just a second. I'm going to turn on my little fan here because it's warm up in this room. Okay. He also says, we are all sons of one man. We're honest men. Are they honest men, though? Honest men who sold their brother? I think that would offend Joseph a little bit, don't you? But maybe it's a change. Maybe it's a recognition that they weren't always honest men, but now they're honest men. So we'll keep going. We're honest men. At least in this case, they're being honest. We're honest men. Your servants have never been spies. But he said to them, no, you have come to see the nakedness of the land. They said, we're your servants. We're 12 brothers, the sons of a certain man in the land of Canaan. The youngest, however, is now with our father, and one is no more. So that's why we're 10, because the youngest stayed with the father, and one is gone. So I think this probably upsets Joseph. And why would this upset Joseph? Well, he knows who's not there, right? He recognizes his brothers, and he knows that it's his full brother, Benjamin, who's not there. And he probably knows that in his absence, that Benjamin has become the favorite because he is a son of Rachel. And so in his mind, his father has not learned the lesson that you don't show favoritism like this because it does nothing but cause troubles. And he might even be afraid that Benjamin's life would be in danger like his. Why would he not think that? So he says, Joseph said to them, it's just as I've said to you, you're spies. Here's how you will be tested. As Pharaoh lives, you shall not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. So one of you go and bring your brother while the rest of you remain in prison, in order that your words may be tested, whether the truth is in you, or else, as Pharaoh lives, surely you are spies. And he put them all together in prison for 3 days. So the brother who was thrown into the prison of his own, the pit, and who ended up in a prison for a while for being falsely accused of attacking his current master's wife, gives his brothers a little bit of their own treatment and puts them into prison, but only for 3 days. 3 days. Seems like something else recently lasted for 3 days, but maybe I'm just making that up. Yeah, I'm talking about Easter. Anyway, on the 3rd day, Joseph said to them, do this and you will live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, so he lets them stew. He says, if you're honest men, let one of your brothers stay here while you are imprisoned, where you are imprisoned. The rest of you shall go and carry grain for the famine of your households. So now he's kind of lightened up. And again, I don't know how calculated this is. The commentaries that I read indicate that it's extremely calculated, that it was the plan from the start. But I don't know that it matters. But he's gone from letting one go and holding the rest in prison to saying, I'll hold one in prison and the rest of you can go. And I think at this point, this is a test. I think Joseph is saying, there was a time where just for your own pleasure, you were willing to kill, and then maybe you got talked out of killing, but you were willing to sell one of your brothers into slavery. So I wonder what happens if I send you home and you leave one of your brothers. Have you changed? I think that's what Joseph wants to know. Before he reveals himself, he wants to know if his brothers have changed. Joseph has changed. And so I think he recognizes that there is a good chance that his brothers have changed. And so this is their test. which I think they fail, by the way, but let's keep reading and we'll get to that. And I'm interested in hearing your opinion on this. The rest of you shall go, carry grain for the famine of your households, and bring your youngest brother to me. Thus your words will be verified, and you shall not die. And they agreed to do so. They said to one another, alas, we are paying the penalty for what we did to our brother. Remember, it's not yet established because it can't be the Deuteronomistic theology until we get into Deuteronomy, I think chapter 17 and 18, but that could be wrong. I haven't looked it up recently. But remember that Deuteronomistic theology was when you do good things happen to you. When you do bad things happen to you. It becomes sort of a law, or at least they think it's a law in Deuteronomy. But for now, it's still part of the tradition. And we see that a lot. There are a lot of traditions right now. For instance, if a brother dies, his brothers are one of his brothers is to take care of his widow, to remarry, have children, that sort of thing. We read about that when we talked about Judah. So they think they've done something wrong, and something wrong is happening to them now. So they said to one another, we're paying the penalty for what we did to our brother. We saw his anguish when he pleaded with us, but we wouldn't listen. That is why this anguish has come upon us. Then Reuben answered them, didn't I tell you not to wrong the boy? But you wouldn't listen. So now there comes a reckoning for his blood. I wonder, there was no real blood. They all knew that he wasn't killed. They knew that he was sold to the Ishmaelites. So that's interesting. Maybe it's metaphorical. Anyway, and I love this part. This is right out of a movie. And it's the only time it happens in the entirety of the Old Testament, as far as I'm aware. They didn't know that Joseph understood them, since he spoke with them through an interpreter. Joseph is so smart. He is so slick. He speaks Egyptian. I don't know what they spoke. What did they speak in ancient Egypt? Egyptian, Greek, Latin. It wouldn't have been Hebrew. Maybe Latin. Maybe Egyptian. Anyway, Joseph has learned the language. And so he speaks in, let's call it Egyptian since we don't know. He speaks in Egyptian, and an interpreter interprets the Egyptian to Hebrew and speaks to the brothers. And the brothers speak Hebrew to the interpreter and speaks it back to Joseph in Egyptian. But of course, Joseph understands everything. What a great negotiating tactic to use. Brilliant, really. Hi, sweetie. Good to see you. Okay, well, let me see it. Come here. Give me just a second. Come over here where I can see. The camera's facing this way. Nobody will see you. I promise. I promise nobody will see you. Turn around. Yeah, I love it. Looks great. Cheryl found a new hairstylist in Waco and got her hair done, and she wanted me to see it. So, Bible study is important, but looking at your wife's haircut, that's up there. Reuben did have a plan before they sold Joseph. That's exactly right, Ben. In fact, that's why he says, I told you not to hurt him. My point was that I think maybe you're referring to is that Reuben knew there was no real blood. So I'm guessing it might be I got it. It just occurred to me. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Maybe the assumption, since they hadn't heard from Joseph in all those years, maybe the assumption was that the Egyptians killed him, and so there was blood on their hands. Anyway, doesn't really matter, but it is interesting. But you are absolutely correct, and that's why not only does Reuben speak up in that particular point, but he also gets a little bit of a break here in just a minute. Okay, we're doing good. Reuben says, "Didn't I tell you not to wrong the boy, but you wouldn't listen? So now there comes a reckoning for his blood." They didn't know that Joseph understood them, since he spoke with them through an interpreter. He turned away from them and wept. If they had seen him weep, they would have known something was up. And so he had to hide himself. He returned and spoke to them, and he picked out Simeon and had him bound before their eyes. And this probably would have been Reuben. But perhaps Reuben gets a little bit of special treatment, and instead it's Simeon. He binds them before their eyes. And then Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, which is what they came for, right? Because people were starving. And to return every man's money to his sack, and to give them provisions for their journey. So not only does he give them the grain, but he gives them their money back, which is totally bizarre. So there's a question of why. It's never really answered. Does he do it out of love, or is it a test? Probably a test. Because what does he give back to them? He gives back to them silver. What did they get when they sold him to the Ishmaelites? They get silver. So I think he wants to know how important. Is silver still worth more than their integrity? Or have they grown? Have they learned? Have they evolved? Have they developed? Are they different people? Will they, at some point, return that silver? I think it's a test. I think it's a test. And then it says this was done for them. They loaded their donkeys with their grain and departed. When one of them opened his sack to give his donkey fodder at the lodging place, he saw his money at the top of the sack. He said to his brothers, "My money's been put back. Here it is in my sack." At this, they lost heart and turned trembling to one another, saying, "What is this that God has done to us?" Now, at first reading, this might be confusing. Normally, we would think that's like an awesome blessing. Wow, we got the grain, we got stuff, we got provisions for the ride home, we got to keep our silver. This is great. But remember, what were they accused of? They were accused of being spies. They thought they had to prove themselves that they weren't spies, or they would be put to death. And now they're fearing, perhaps, that they'll be accused of being thieves as well, which at the very least would have cost them their hands and possibly their lives as well. When they came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, they told him all that had happened to them, saying, "The man, the Lord of the land, spoke harshly to us. He charged us with spying on the land. But we said to him, 'We're honest men, we're not spies. We're 12 brothers, sons of our father. One is no more, and the youngest is now with our father in the land of Canaan.' Then the man, the Lord of the land, said to us, 'By this I shall know that you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers with me, take grain for the famine of your households, and go your way. Bring your youngest brother to me, and I shall know that you are not spies, but honest men. Then I will release your brother to you, and you may trade in the land.'" So they're just telling the father what the deal was. As they were emptying their sacks, there in each one sack was his bag of money. When they and their father saw their bundles of money, they were dismayed. And their father Jacob said to them, "I'm the one you have bereaved of children. Joseph is no more, and Simeon is no more, and now you would take Benjamin." I think it's interesting that he accuses the brothers of Joseph being lost. I'll have to think about that some more. Perhaps simply because he had sort of put him in charge of them, or perhaps because he's looking for someone to blame, but he surely doesn't know that they sold Joseph into slavery. Nonetheless, this is what he says. Joseph is no more, Simeon is no more, and now you would take Benjamin. All of this has happened to me. Then Reuben said to his father, you may kill my two sons if I don't bring them back to you. Which is, I mean, it's a display of honor. It's saying, Dad, I'm going to go and I'm going to get Simeon and I'm going to bring home Benjamin. You don't have to worry about it. If these two die, you can kill my two. That, you know, it might be a little bit of an empty threat, because the whole point is that they're a remnant at this point. This is the foundation, the beginning, the 12 tribes of Israel. They all need to live, and their descendants need to live. And if they die, then the whole thing is at risk. So obviously Jacob's not going to kill his grandkids. So, but still, I'm going to give Reuben the benefit of the doubt here and say that he's very sincere in this offer. Put him in my hands, and I will bring him back to you. But he said, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he alone is left. If harm should, oh man. The test here is for Joseph to see if his brothers had changed. It is good. Probably, Ben, something like that. It is good that the test was not to see if his father had changed, but his father has not changed. Can you imagine him saying, he alone is left? He's got 10 other children, 9 who are with him at the particular point in time and healthy and have grain for a while. And he tells them, if your brother dies too, nobody will be left. It's so insulting. They're all children of Jacob. And imagine not only how badly it must have made them feel, but how badly did it make Leah and the handmaidens that had children with them? How would this make them feel? It's so mean. I don't know what to make of it. Yeah, me too, Janice, to be honest with you. I've read this several times, but sometimes it takes several times. My son shall not go down with you. You can go, but my son won't go. Oh, it's just so harsh. For his brother is dead, and he alone is left. If harm should come to him on the journey that you are to make, you would bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to Sheol. Let's keep going. Let's see how far through 43 we can get. Just keep in mind that at this point, Simeon is still in jail, and Jacob is perfectly willing to let Simeon die a certain death to avoid the chance that something might happen to Benjamin. Now the famine was severe in the land, and when they had eaten up the grain that they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, "Go again, buy us a little more food." Maybe he's not all with it. I don't know. But this whole time, Simeon's just rotting in jail. Although, of course, remember, jail's not as bad as we think of jail. And, of course, Joseph would make sure he was taken care of. But Joseph doesn't know this. Sorry. Too many J's. Judah, Joseph, Jacob. Jacob doesn't know this. Kimberly says, it seems that preferential treatment was common and maybe expected then. I don't think so, Kimberly. It is possible, and I would have to read, I'd have to read a lot more extra biblical sources to know what the norm was at that particular time. But I think, and I could be wrong here and you could be very right, but I think that's the point of this story, that this preferential treatment is what causes the trouble to begin with, right? Where is the first preferential treatment in the entirety of the Bible? It's when God prefers Abel's sacrifice to Cain. And the result of that preference is murder. Now, that's not God's fault by any stretch of the imagination. But I think the lesson here is that this preferential kind of treatment always leads to negative consequences. So you might be right. You might be right. I might be crazy. That's from the prophet Billy Joel. Because sometimes it may just be a lunatic you're looking for. But anyway, I digress. It doesn't end well. So they've eaten up all the grain that they had bought from Egypt, and their father said to them, "Go again, buy us a little more food." But Judah said to him, "Dude, the man solemnly warned us, saying, 'You will not see my face again unless your brother is with you. If you send our brother with us, we'll go down and we will buy you food. But if you will not send us, we won't go down, because the man said to us, you won't see my face unless your brother is with you.'" And then Israel. So now no more Jacob. Now it's Israel. Why is it different? Why is it Jacob in chapter 42 and Israel in chapter 43? And here is a possible answer for you that you might not like, but it's possible this is just a retelling of the first story by a second author. Or a second author knew the second story and the first author didn't. Or the second author told it better and they put it in. Or they didn't want to show preferential treatment when they were putting this book together and they alternated back and forth. But I think when one calls Jacob Jacob and the other calls Jacob Israel, I think we're looking at two different authors. I know y'all probably don't care, but this is the kind of stuff that I really enjoy. But he's Israel now. Israel said, "Why did you treat me so badly as to tell the man you had another brother? Why did you even say that? You never had to tell him there was another brother, and then he never would have known." But of course, he would have known, because it was Joseph. They replied, "The man questioned us carefully about ourselves and our kindred, saying, 'Is your father still alive? Have you another brother?'" Do you remember any of those questions? I don't remember Joseph saying, "Is your father still alive?" I don't remember Joseph saying, "Do you have another brother?" They volunteered this information to save themselves. At least the part about all coming from one man. That was them saying, "Hey, we're brothers. You don't send 10 spies into a foreign land who are all brothers, because, then we wouldn't have And maybe that's part of the whole thing. Maybe they would say, yeah, we do have one more brother, but he's at home, and the other brother we have is already dead. So if we're all spies and you kill us, there's just going to be one left, and that's not enough for the family to continue. But they're telling their father something that they didn't tell Joseph, or that Joseph never asked them, to our knowledge. So we wonder, yeah, the nation is absolutely in jeopardy, Ben. If by nation you mean the fledgling Israel, the it's not even a remnant at this point, it's just the beginning. But yeah, it's absolutely in jeopardy. Who's left? It's Jacob and his 12 children. They are Israel. Jacob is Israel, and his 12 children are the 12 tribes of Israel. And not only are they in jeopardy because they're starving to death, but in Jacob's mindset, one's already dead, one's already imprisoned. Yeah, they're in jeopardy for sure. Why did you treat me so badly as to tell the man that you had another brother? They said, well, the man questioned us carefully about ourselves and our kindred, saying, is your father still alive? Have you another brother? He didn't ask that. I mean, maybe he did. It's not in the scripture. What we told him was an answer to these questions. Could we in any way know that he would say, bring your brother down? Then Judah steps up this time. Now it's Judah, and it's not Reuben. And he says to his father Israel, send the boy with me, and let us be on our way, so that we may live and not die, you and we, and also our little ones. He's saying, sort of along the same lines, it reminds me of what Esau says. Look, we're starving to get to death. What good is saving Benjamin if he's going to stay here and die of hunger? Let me take him, and let's go, and let's deal with this situation. I myself will be surety for him. You can hold me accountable for him if I do not bring him back to you and set him before you. Then let me bear the blame forever. If we had not delayed, we would have now returned twice. So Judah, the ancestor of Jesus Christ himself, says to Jacob, you got to stop this nonsense. We're starving to death. If you weren't doing the same thing that you've been doing since you made Joseph that stupid coat, we could have been to Egypt and back twice and had grain. It's time to go. He speaks with wisdom. Then their father Israel said to them, if it must be so, then do this. Take some of the choice fruits of the land in your bags and carry them down as a present to the man. A little balm and a little honey, gum, resin, pistachio nuts, and almonds. Oh my goodness, pistachio nuts. You had me at pistachio nuts. Take double the money with you. Carry back with you the money that was turned in the top of your sacks. Perhaps it was an oversight. So not only is he saying, the double doesn't include the money that was on top. He's saying, take twice what they're asking and take the money back anyway. I want to do whatever it takes to make this man happy, because I've got to have my precious Benjamin back, no matter what it takes. Take your brother also, and be on your way again to the man. May El Shaddai, may God Almighty grant you mercy before the man, that he may send back your other brother and Benjamin. As for me, if I'm bereaved of my children, I'm bereaved. At least at this point he says children and not child. Although he might just mean Joseph and Benjamin. I don't know. If I'm bereaved of my children, I'm bereaved. So the men took the present. They took double the money with them, as well as Benjamin. They went on their way down to Egypt, and they stood before Joseph. And that's going to be it for tonight. We're going to start with chapter 43, verse 16 next week. It's just getting good. I hope you're enjoying this. This is we're coming to the. It's going to take a while, but we're coming to the end of the story. There's 52 books, chapters in Genesis. Alexa, how many chapters are there in Genesis?
The book of Genesis contains 50 chapters.
50 chapters. I knew that. That's what I meant to say. I meant to say 50. So yeah, we're getting towards the end. And boy, are we learning. We're learning so much about the nature of humanity, the broken nature of humanity, these absolute degenerates that God keeps using for the purpose of God, for the will of God, because there's nothing but degenerates to choose from. Which I think is pretty awesome, because that means all of us degenerates know that we can be used by God too. What a great message for us today. Thank you all for being here tonight. This is one of my favorite things to do all week, and I'm really glad that you were with us. Hope we have some more folks next week to catch back up. I know a lot of people watch during the week, and if you are somebody who's watching during the week and if you have a question, please call me. I'll be more than happy to tell you that I don't know, but I know where to look it up, and I'll find you answers from people much smarter than me. But I'm really enjoying this deep dive. And again, just to remind you, as soon as we are done with the book of Genesis, as much as I want to go straight into the next book because I think it's so important, Exodus, we're not going to. We're going to take a little break. We're going to go to the book of Acts. Maybe when we're done with Acts, if you guys want, we'll come back to Exodus, because this will still be on our mind. I think that's a good idea. I think we just need a break, and I think Acts is really important. So that's the plan. All right, everybody, that is it for tonight. Keep in mind things going on this week. I'm going to make a call tomorrow and let people know. Norris Fraser's memorial service is going to be at 2:00 this Saturday at the church. Jimmy might be calling some of you to ask if you can bring some food for the dinner or the lunch that will precede that. And in the meantime, they say they've got more than enough food. They've got family coming in. They've got neighbors providing food. Not really sure that Dixie's up to a whole lot of phone calls, but maybe she is. If you feel led to call her, give her a call, send a card, do whatever you can. Just keep her in your prayers. And I think that's about it for tonight. So we'll leave it at that. I like the new setup. I'm glad everything is working too. Curtis says his Alexa also answered the question. That's good. That's good. Alexas all over the world need to know how many chapters in the book of Genesis. All right, that is it for tonight. So I will just leave you by saying Godspeed, God bless, and as always, from the bottom of my heart, thanks for watching.